A man was cleaning out his deceased father's house. He needed to get rid of all of his father's belongings before he put the house up for sale. But one day, while cleaning out the basement, he heard a series of screams, and when he went to investigate, he realized that they weren't coming from this world. I was helping my dad clean out my grandfather's house after he passed away. My grandfather had recently suffered a fatal heart attack at the age of 78. He was pretty fit for his age, and had just celebrated his 26th year of being a cancer survivor. It was almost like he waited until he was free of cancer only to die of a heart attack a few weeks later. My dad was helping him clean out the house so it could be sold. We got all the important documents, including the will, from his lawyer, and we started to go through everything. It was really overwhelming because my grandfather was a pack rat and had saved everything since he was a kid. There were boxes in every room, and it would take us hours just to find things to donate or throw away. Eventually, we got down to the basement, which was by far the most cluttered place in the house. It looked like an explosion at a paper factory. It took us 3 days just to clear enough floor space to walk around. One day, while my dad was sorting through some old photo albums, I was taking out the trash. As I walked past some old filing cabinets, I heard what sounded like a woman screaming. It was a blood-curdling scream, like someone had just stabbed her in the chest. I stopped and listened. The scream came again, but this time it was followed by what sounded like a man's voice. I couldn't make out any of the words, but it sounded like they were speaking German. I called my dad over and he listened. We both stood there for a few minutes, straining to listen. When we couldn't hear anything else, we decided to chalk it up to our imaginations and went back to work. A few hours later, I was taking out another load of trash when I heard the same scream. I called my dad over again, and he agreed that it had definitely come from inside the basement. It definitely wasn't coming from outside the house because we would have been able to see into the basement and we didn't hear anything. Plus, the windows were nailed shut from the inside. We looked around for any possible entry points, but everything was boarded up, nailed shut, or otherwise blocked off. Then we noticed a hole in the wall. It was big enough for a person to crawl through, but we couldn't see anything from where we were standing. Dad grabbed a flashlight and crawled through the hole. He came out on the other side with a wild look on his face. He told me to get out of there and call the police. I did as he said, then backed away slowly. I could see the flashlight beam dancing around on the walls and ceiling. When the cops got there, they were just as confused as we were. They checked everywhere, but there was no way in or out of the basement except for the hole in the wall. There was no other access to the basement from inside the house. The door upstairs was locked from the outside, and there were no windows. We had actually sealed up the hole with wood and nails to keep animals out, but now it seemed like whatever was down there had chewed through the wood to escape. The cops even brought in a canine, but all that did was make the dog bark furiously at the hole in the wall. The cops gave up after a few hours, and we were left to finish cleaning out the house. As soon as they left, I went back to the basement. I was determined to find out what was down there. I knew it had to be something weird. I tried to dig through the pile of stuff to find another entrance, but without any luck. Just as I was about to give up, I felt something hard under the floorboards. I pulled it out and it was a key. I looked all over the basement to see if I could find a lock that matched, but I couldn't find anything. Then I remembered the filing cabinets from earlier. I walked over and tried the key in the lock. It fit. I opened the drawer and found an old gun. I don't know anything about guns, but it looked pretty big. I handed it over to my dad, and he looked at me like I was an idiot. He said, "What are you doing with that? Give that to the police." I did. And a few days later, we got a call from the police saying they didn't find anything. I asked them if they at least dusted for fingerprints, but they said they couldn't because my grandfather had recently died of a heart attack, and his body had already been cremated. So they believed that whoever had made those screeches was still hiding in the basement, and they weren't willing to risk their lives trying to find him. What? So the cops just gave up? OP? How do you just give up? Like, sure, maybe you can't find the guy, but does nobody watch Ghostbusters? There's always going to be more ghosts. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.